is an 8-iron, and it's a dead shank.
Wow.
Way right.
Oh, takes a hop off the path.
You gotta be kidding me. Very tough pitch shot right here. You gotta hit it into the hill, one hop up and bite, and it's in.
Kind of like that.
I would like to welcome to the Sub 70 podcast 4-time PGA Tour winner, 3-time Champions Tour winner, and President's Cup team member Woody Austin to the podcast. Woody, thanks for taking the time today.
Sure thing. Love to do it.
Well, first off, I know you had a little vacation down in the Bahamas with the family. Did you get some R&R? And I know the Champions Tour is starting to push through the majors coming this summer. You're sort of ready to go for the second half of the season.
I hope so. The game's not terrible. I just can't seem to score, can't get the ball in the hole. So struggling with that, but I feel like I'm starting to play better.
At this point of your career, 4 years into the Champions Tour segment of your golf career, what would a major on the Champions Tour mean to you at this point?
That would be the culmination of it all. I think that would kind of validate at least still playing and still trying to compete. I think that's basically the last goal. I'd say I didn't reach the goals on the regular tour, so it would be nice to at least reach that one out here.
And I know you sort of touched on it earlier, and I was looking at your stats this season on the Champions Tour, and they actually all look pretty solid. So you said you're sort of working on your game a little bit. Is it? You said not getting the ball in the hole. Is it putting? Is it chipping? Or where you sort of put your emphasis now?
Well, putting's the most important thing in this game nowadays, period. There is no other thing that really makes such an impact. And it's always been the weakest part of my game, and it continues to get it continues to be, and unfortunately the last couple of years it's gotten really bad, and I just got to figure out how to, like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to get the ball in the hole right now, and I'm not doing a very good job of it.
With playing the Champions Tour as for long as you played on the PGA Tour, what's the biggest difference that you see when you're out there? Is the competition feel the same sort of when you're in the hunt, or is it a little less, lack of a better word, pressure? What's sort of the biggest difference you see, let's say, when you're in contention on Sunday between both tours?
I'd say it's probably just the fact that it's not as nerve-wracking because it's, you've been doing it for a lot longer. It's not as hyped up, I guess you'd say. A lot less people watching, a lot less money you're playing for. If that's a factor, which obviously it can be a factor. So I think it's the fact that you're still competing. So unless you're not really wanting to be there wholeheartedly and compete, it's pretty similar because everybody wants to win at whatever they're doing. So from that standpoint, it's the same, but the atmosphere is so much more downplayed. It's so much more relaxed. Again, less hyped up because instead of playing in front of thousands, you might be playing in front of a couple hundred. So that would be the major difference.
It was interesting. I was listening to Paul Azinger, who was on the No Laying Up podcast, and he was talking about when he went out on the Champions Tour for a few events, and he thought it would be, the guys kind of hanging out and going to have, nice meals and red wine afterwards. And he's like, there's guys are putting in some serious effort, some serious time to maintain the level of play that's out there. Did that surprise you as well a little bit of how hard the guys still practice and how good the level of play was? Because you won late in your career on the PGA Tour. You were still obviously very competitive. To go from that switch out there, did you kind of notice what Azinger did from him making those comments?
I noticed it to a point, but again, it boils down to the competitor in you. He was looking at it from just a standpoint of wanting to just go out and play and kind of chill, which is fine. You can do that. I mean, he has he has the credentials and he has the ability. If he just wanted to come out and play, because he still could. But I think the competitor in you realizes that, you know, everybody is still trying and everybody is still playing pretty well. So you can't just kind of fake through it. You do have to put in the time. The question is, how much time do you really want to put into it, which is what I struggled with last year. And I'm trying to do a slightly better job this year because I don't want to play. I don't want to grind that hard like I did when I was younger. So I understand his position from that standpoint, but I also don't want to embarrass myself as much as I did last year by playing so poorly. So you got to find that little happy balance.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where he was getting at, where he just really wasn't willing to put the work in any longer. The desire just wasn't there. And like you said, these guys can still really play. You know, go play the golf courses you guys play from 6,900 yards and shoot 17, 18 under par in 3 days. I mean, you guys, the competition's still darn good out there. My next question is, how did you sort of get involved in golf? And I know you played a bunch of other sports growing up, but how did you get involved, and when did that become kind of your number one sport when you were growing up?
I didn't start really playing golf until high school. I played everything, like you said, growing up. I played baseball mostly until high school, but I did play tennis as well. I played basketball. I played point guard in junior high. But when I got to high school, everybody, you know, basically was growing. Everybody was pretty big in all the physical sports that I played, and I was still 5'3" and 95 pounds soaking wet in 10th grade. So I got to that point. My mother was a big time athlete, and I got my athletic ability from her, and it was time to try to figure out one sport and focus on it that I could, you know, perform at high school. And golf was fresh. I'd only just started playing. It didn't matter how big I was. I'd already played the other sports for a long time and was, you know, wasn't seeing my... Baseball was the hardest one to get away from because that was the one I was really good at. But I was kind of having problems with the association and the people I was playing with. So I think that kind of made it easy for me to make the transition into golf. I think if I was still happy at baseball, I probably would have continued to play baseball, but I guess it worked out okay. But golf was easy back then for me, considering how small I was, whereas everything else, it was getting tougher and tougher because everybody was growing and getting bigger, and I was still a little runt, I guess you'd say.
Then you obviously, I mean, you start playing in high school, yet you're good enough to play at the University of Miami, so that learning curve, you must have gotten really good really quick, I'm assuming, to be, you know, playing D1 college golf by the time you're done with high school. Yeah,
I picked it up quite quick. Like I said, I didn't start until 10th grade as far as really playing. I played the Greater Tampa Junior Golf Association, and there were some really good players there, Lee Jansen and company, who had been playing, you know, junior golf their whole lives and stuff. But I guess to a point, it was one of those things. I grew up on a little public golf course with no driving range. So I didn't become like a range rat. For me to learn the game, I had to just play. And fortunately for me, I fell in love with it early enough or quick enough to where on the weekends I'd walk and play 36, 45, 54 holes. And I lived right off of the 16th hole, and I'd just time it at night to finish at home, and then I'd go home. So I think I just basically picked it up so fast because that's all I did once I started. And I think I'm blessed. I'm not blessed with physical attributes as far as size and power and whatever, but I think I'm very blessed with some serious hand-eye coordination, which is why I can play any sport.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I kind of say every guy on the PGA Tour has to have a great set of hands and coordination to be able to make that move at that speed at that level. So, I think it's one of those attributes. Certainly doesn't hurt to have it. When in your college career did you know you were going to be good enough to make an attempt at being a professional?
I think probably my sophomore year when I really started to play against the bigger names, the guys that were the All-Americans, the guys that were already well-known names, the Davis Loves, the Scott Verplanks, the guys that have been playing their whole lives and had reputations, and I was competing with them and I was beating them, and I finished ninth at the NCAA's as a sophomore, off all by myself. No, our team didn't make it, and I started to do some good stuff. So I think that's when I realized that I had a good chance.
And then when you turned pro in '86, did you do the mini tour circuit? Did you go to Q school right away? How did your process sort of go on learning to become a professional golfer?
Well, the reason why it took me so long is I got sidetracked. I did turn pro in '86, but right before the second stage of Q school, I tore my left knee up, and unfortunately found out that it was a previous baseball injury when I was younger, and my left knee was 8 years underdeveloped than my right. So I had a long road back, and as you know, back then there was no other avenues to play golf. You had Q school, and that was it. So I went to work in a bank like a normal human being for 3.5 solid years before I started back practicing and playing. Tooled around a little bit part time, just working on my game. But I didn't come back playing until 92, 93. And then I was playing at that time I was playing the Orlando, Florida mini tours. My days consisted of playing the mini tours in Florida on Monday and Tuesday. I would work in the bank on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I would bartend at night at a sports bar on Friday night and Saturday, and Sunday was my practice day. That was my routine for a while. I took out a loan from the bank in 1993 to play the Dakotas tour, which was new. A gentleman a good friend of mine who I'd met, Doug Dunneke, at the Florida mini tours, was from up there, and so we traveled together and we went up to play the Dakotas tour. And the first event before that was the Waterloo Open, where he grew up. And the funny thing about the story was I had money. My travel money was what I had won off the mini tours, and then the tournament entry fees I took the loan out from the bank to pay for. And when I got up there, my wife called me, and my check bounced from the mini tours, so I was out of money, and I was going to have to go back home. And Doug loaned me the money for the Waterloo Open, and I won.
And the rest is history, per se. Sort of. That was the.
So yeah. I mean, I was that close to nothing again. I was that close to having to completely start over again, and so I won the Waterloo Open. 2 weeks later, I won the second tournament on the Dakotas tour, and that gave me the money for Q school. I got to the finals of Q school, got my Nike card. I think it was still a Nike. It was only the third year of it, because this was 94. I finished 23rd, I believe, on the money list. So 94 was the first year I played golf fully again, and got to the finals of Q School, and I won the finals of Q School in 94, and then I was Rookie of the Year in 95 at 31 years of age.
Did that, when you're kind of grinding it out and you're really, that's real pressure. Does that sort of help make you the player that you were, though, during your career, that you can kind of survive that, you can grind through it, you won at that level,
Yeah.
you won at the next level? Does it make you a better golfer at some level of starting off having to grind like that and become better and learn how to be a professional?
I guess to a point. I don't know if it really makes you a better golfer in aspects of talent level. I think you're either, especially back then, it's really, and I hate to sound like it, but the game back then, you had so much to learn. So it took so much more time to learn everything back then, because you had to be so much better than you have to be today, because you had to be so much more precise. So the ability to the hand-eye coordination, the ability to understand the golf swing, the ability to understand your own physical attributes was way more important than it is today. And so from that standpoint, yeah, to go through everything I went through, to have to persevere through all that, made me the player that I was able to become. Unfortunately, the mental aspect, which is what professional golf is really about, I didn't have that. I didn't have that tool. I had too many, demons in the closet or setbacks throughout my life to where I just couldn't get that aspect of it. But the perseverance was good. I had as well documented, I had a pretty good temper for quite a while. The difference was, and part of it was the perseverance that I did go through, the fact that I did push myself through everything that I didn't have was the reason I was so hard on myself. Is people say, well, you were too hard, but I was like, yeah, but if I wasn't hard on myself, I would have never made it. I would have given up a long time ago when everything was, going the wrong way in your mid-20s. If I didn't push myself, if I wasn't hard on myself, I'd have never made it. Now, once I did make it, instead of continuing to be that hard on myself, I should have given myself more of a breather, but that's just not who I was. But even though it was bad to a point, I will always say I did not have I never blamed anyone else for my problems, and I think there's a big difference between somebody who gets upset at themselves as opposed to somebody who just gets upset at everything.
Oh, I totally understand where you're coming from. The game, can drive a human being nuts, but like I said, a lot of the guys, a lot of people don't realize what you guys, not all of it is, Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson or Justin Leonard or Jordan Spieth. You just go to the top. Like it's a hell of a grind to get to the top, and the backstory of it's always just fascinating, and what that takes just to get through that to the PGA Tour and then to succeed on the PGA Tour. Most of the guys that I've had on the podcast, it's a really interesting story, and the word I would use most of the time is guts and perseverance. A lot of self-belief and a lot of hard work to get there. And kind of as my next question, like that had to be one hell of a feeling in '95 to come back from where you came from, to grind it up, and then to win on the PGA Tour. I can't imagine how satisfying that must have been.
Very, very much, because like I said, there were so many bumps in the road, so many roadblocks, all those years of sitting there watching people that I knew I was as good as, if not better, watching Lee Janzen win a major, knowing that I could beat him, know that I could play with him. I played with him my whole life. I played junior golf with him. I played college golf with him. watching Davis Love have all the success he had, knowing that I was that good, and yet I'm sitting on a couch watching it on the weekends, or and I'm working in a bank like a normal person. And then when when people would come into the bank and say, "Oh, when I was first started, hey, what do you do? What brought you here?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm a professional golfer, and I'm hurt." And they're just look at you like, "Yeah, right." So when I actually won Q School, and believe it or not, I worked my last week after I won Q School just so I could go back and say, "Yeah, see, I really was."
That's a great story to come back with, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I really am a professional golfer.
2003 to 2010, when I was kind of doing my outline for this, you played some damn good golf. 2 wins, super consistent. What attributed to that run in, let's just call that the prime of your PGA Tour career? What did you do really well day in and day out?
I mean, I don't toot my own horn much about my golf, but I think if you ask anybody who knows me very well, I was one of the best ball strikers in the game. I don't get any credit for it because I didn't win enough and I didn't, do enough, but I was and still am. I still can hit it pretty good. I was one of the best ball strikers in the game. I can hit every shot. Now, I can't hit it as far as Tiger does, and I don't do things, but I can hit every shot. There's not a shot I can't hit. I can hit it low, high, left to right, right to left, up, down, and that's what made me really good. The problem is he was one of the best putters in the game, and I was one of the worst. So you couldn't see how good a player I really was. I believe my career best on tour was like 69th in putting, I think was my career best. But I averaged 100 and something. I won Rookie of the Year in '95 and I was 139th in putting that year. And I was Rookie of the Year, top 25 on the money list. That was my Achilles heel.
Or it shows how good the ball striking must have been.
Correct. But the problem today is you won't see that today because there is no way to separate yourself ball striking wise today. So that's why there's a big emphasis on putting. That wasn't the big emphasis back then. So now you hear about how good a guy's playing, but he's not doing well because of putting, whereas back in the day you didn't hear it that much because there wasn't such an emphasis on it. There was more of an emphasis on how well you played because you could. The reason why Tiger was so dominant and the reason why Nicklaus was so great is because they could separate themselves from the rest of the field. So when Tiger showed up and the media would say, "Well, he's only got to beat 20 guys this week," well, there was a reason behind that, and it's because his ability to hit shots and his ability to do the things that he could do were better than 90% of the players, so therefore he could separate himself from the rest of the field, and you had to be at your absolute best to compete with that. Whereas nowadays, everybody does the exact same thing. So now the only thing that separates you is how well you putt. But back in the day, you could be the best player and stay on top. Nowadays, you can't because everybody does everything the same. And that's the sad part about what the game has become.
Is that because of the athlete, the equipment, or the golf ball, or a combination of all of it?
It's a combination. I don't give in to the athlete part. Yeah, they're better athletes. There's no question about that. They work out more. They're stronger. But that to me doesn't equate to what they're doing. What that is they do that so that they can compete. That doesn't make them better competitors. That's the way the game has changed. So that's what you have to do just to compete. Whereas in my era, you had to actually play golf to compete. Now you don't have to play golf. There's a difference between being a player who plays golf and an actual golfer. There's very few golfers anymore. there's a shit ton of really good players, but there's very few golfers because you don't play golf anymore. You don't have to worry about what the golf ball does. You don't have to learn how to hit golf shots. You don't have to worry about your bad shots. You don't have to worry about the rough. There's nothing to worry about in golf anymore that we had to deal with. So from that standpoint, I could care less about the athletic aspect of it, because when you're in your 20s, you are at the peak of your athletic ability, are you not? In any sport there is. The thing about golf, the reason why golfers back in the day weren't special in their 20s unless they were the Tiger Woods or the Jack Nicklauses of the game, is because they learned a very difficult game at a young age that most people took them until in their 30s to master. Well, now you don't have to learn all that stuff. So now you can be really good at 20 years of age because you don't have to learn anything about golf. All you have to do is, like what you're saying, all you have to do now is work out and be able to swing 125 miles an hour, and you can be good at golf.
And hit the ball one direction, right? Hit the 5
Yeah,
foot fade.
you don't. As I said, you don't have to play golf. You just have to hit the ball. I try not to downplay it, but it's so easily for me to see the difference. Jason Day was number one in the world of golf 2 years ago, and Jason Day has one swing, one shot. And that, to me, if you are the best player in the world at your sport and you are that limited, I think there's a problem.
Yeah, I wonder how. I mean, I'm 45 years old, so I started off with a lot of balls in wooden woods, right, and swing easy, and I hit a low hook because I had to take the spin off the ball. And I have a 6-year-old and a soon-to-be 9-year-old, and I'm teaching them the modern swing, and so is our pro of we're just going to beat the hell out of the thing, and we'll find it later. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's you think about. I was just kind of thinking as you were talking, like when those guys from your era, Curtis is a little bit older, but Curtis Strange in his prime, right, early 30s, even Hogan in his 30s, and 40s was in the prime. You're right. A lot of those guys from that generation, their 20s were sort of, even like Tom Kiten always talked about it, of you had to learn how to play. And then you sort of figured it out between 28 and 38? Of how to, do you keep your card and you sort of move up to it? But I think you're right in the reason, and I don't know if it's just different. I missed watching the old guys, because I watched golf from that generation when they really did work the ball and stuff like that. It is more one-dimensional. But is that just because the way the golf courses are set up of, how would you not play one-dimensional golf if you could get away with it? Like you said, it has to.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying is that's what the game has become. So my big take on that is I don't fall into the trap of these guys are better than we were when we were 20 just because that they're out on tour and they're winning and whatever. They keep wanting to say that they're better, and it's not. It's just easier to be good when you're 20 because you don't have all those things to learn. You don't have all those things to worry about. When was the last time you saw a guy hit a ball out of the rough that was uncontrolled and it airmailed the green and the gallery just looked? When was the last time a guy even airmailed the back of a green from the rough? Not even over the guy, but just airmailed the back of the green. That was a common, normal thing when you hit the ball in the rough because you had so many variables you had to figure out. Now they just look at the ball in the rough and they go, oh, yeah, this ball's just going to go nice and high because the ball jumps out of the rough straight up in the air. Right. The ball never jumped up in the air.
I remember those days,
like
right? It was
the ball
brutal.
went like a Nolan Ryan fastball with a Phil Necro knuckleball at the same time. Did it not?
Yeah, it did, and they're hitting so much shorter clubs in, right? Let's say it's
Correct.
a par 4. It's even 480 yards. I mean, out of the rough, they're hitting, a 9-iron?
Correct.
From 158 at 160. It's a different, and that's going to go straight up in the air, and it's going to fall. Yeah, you don't, the danger of the, oh my God, like I said, I played the old equipment to what it is now. It's, and I'm not a professional golfer, but I'm way better out of the rough at 45 than it was at 18. because of the equipment.
Absolutely.
Just go
Absolutely.
straight
No
up.
question.
Yeah.
No question about it.
It's interesting.
And
how
the
it's
scary
changed.
thing about that is, and again, I don't have, I had this discussion yesterday during the U.S. Open qualifier because I was fortunate enough to play with a kid from Northwestern who actually qualified. He birdied the last hole to be to get in, and we had this discussion during our first round. There's nothing wrong. There's always been long hitters. I'm not against being in great shape and being able to swing 125. If you can do that, more power to you. I could have done that when I was 20 years old, but it wasn't the thing to do. You couldn't do that and hit a freaking little wooden club with a Balata ball consistently.
Yeah,
So I'm not against that.
Right?
Right.
Dan
Nicklaus
Pohl
was
killed
long.
it, but he's the anomaly. When you think of the longest hitters, say from the '80s, I don't know if they were necessarily the best players.
Correct. There's always been long players. So this argument that we want to take away the long hitter is bull. I could care less about the guy that hits it long. My thing is he should have to chase his foul balls. So when he hits it off the toe, the golf ball should not self-correct itself to where it only misses the fairway by 20 yards. And yet it still goes 310 yards. He should see what it's like that if he does not hit the ball solid, the ball should not act like a normal golf shot.
So I was going to bring this up later. So let's say someone made you commissioner of the PGA Tour. What do you think would make it, for lack of a better word, more interesting or better? Would you bring the golf ball back? Would you make it spin more? Would it be an equipment thing? Like, how would you, in a perfect world? Because it sounds like you enjoyed that era of golf when, for lack of a better word, solid ball striking really meant, made a difference. And I agree with you. Like, they're all hit the same. So how do you put it back at this point or whatever?
Well, see, that's just it. Unfortunately, the USGA and the R&A have not done their job. The USGA and the R&A have allowed the tours, the PGA Tour and Tim Fincham, they've allowed them to run to take over. The USGA and the R&A are supposed to protect the integrity of the game. They have let that completely go. That's where it all really started, or as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we are supposed to be playing a professional sport, correct?
I would agree with that.
Name another professional sport that has changed every aspect of the game to make it easier for the professional to play the game.
Well, I always use, so this is my argument, is baseball, right? It doesn't change. It's a wooden bat.
No, right. We are the only sport where the supposed great, newer, stronger, better athlete is not changing the sport. We've allowed the equipment and the bigger, stronger athlete to change our sport. So we're having to change everything about our sport, whereas nobody else has to. Basketball, even though the point guard has gone from 5'10" to 6'6", the basket is still 10 feet tall. The court is still the same dimensions. Could you imagine if LeBron James, as big and as strong as he is, if they made the basket, let's just say they made the basket a little bit taller, they made the court a little bit bigger, they changed the rules for him, then I'd grasp basketball would be crazy. And LeBron James wouldn't be the best player in the world. LeBron James wouldn't be this freak athlete, because then there'd be a whole bunch more. Because there'd be some of the role players would be even better because they could get to the 12-foot rim better. Or Steph Curry would learn how to shoot on that rim better. The wider the court, then it would be harder to play defense. And so then guys that could dribble the ball would be better than they are. I mean, they didn't change anything. Going to baseball, my other game. Could you imagine Aaron Judge with a bat that wouldn't break?
Or a pitcher would get killed. I mean, if
exactly
a bat, yeah, no.
Now,
I mean, if you
the players of today, obviously they went through their steroid area and whatever, but those athletes have changed. Yeah, they've become bigger, stronger, faster, but they still had to learn how to play baseball the way baseball was played. They still have to hit a curveball. They still have to hit a slider. They still have to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And they still have to do it with a bat that breaks.
Right, with a small sweet spot compared to what the college kids use.
Exactly. But we have taken our sport and made it. We have now given these guys 200% more area to hit, a golf ball that's 1,000 times easier to play. So now, what can we do? We make the golf courses a little longer, but do we grow rough anymore? No. Do we narrow the fairway? No. So the game has gotten so much easier, and we've made it so much easier. Now you got these green reading books. You got, I mean, Jesus Christ, you want to go ahead and play the game for us now? That's where I get lost.
Do you think, and I'm just saying my opinion on this, I think there should be two sets of rules in golf. I swing a driver at 98 miles an hour, right? I'm not going to overpower my 6,400-yard golf course, par 70, that I'm a home club member. Nor is there anybody except maybe, two guys out of the 200 who played college golf who hit it 300 yards. What about let us enjoy the equipment, because if you look at the handicaps the last 15 years, they haven't really gone down, but kind of do what professional baseball does, where they have some limitations of the ball or whatnot and what you can do. Are you a proponent of that at some level or some degree?
I've said that for a very long time, but I get told that the manufacturers would go out of business. It's too hard on them to make two different. It's too hard for them to make two different sets of equipment and all that sort of jazz. I've said that all along. I said, if you're a professional, well, again, going back to baseball, yeah, when you're in high school, you get to play an aluminum bat. College, but as soon as you turn professional, no. You can't. You don't get all those benefits. You're supposed to be great. You're supposed to be that good. So if you're that good, why do we keep making it easier for you to be that good? That's my part I don't understand. Is because they keep wanting to say how great they are and how talented they are, but we keep making it easier and easier every single year for the last, 30 years. We're making it easier and easier to play this game. Why? Separate them. You want to separate the great players from the average player, then make them have to actually do something. You want to have another Tiger Woods? Get rid of the golf ball. Make the golf ball move. If you make the golf ball move, I could care less if it still goes. Again, I could care less how far it goes, because if it moves, then it's going to go further offline. So I could care less. If you want to swing as hard as you can and you can't control it, more power, because you're gonna make a lot of big numbers. You're gonna start hitting the ball out of bounds a lot. You're gonna start hitting it in the water. But if they keep talking, like I said, the USGA and the R&amp have dropped the ball for the last, decades. But if they really are serious about the golf ball, they're only serious about bringing the ball back 10%. So they're talking about distance. Screw distance. Distance has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that, again, no matter where you hit the golf ball on the club face, the golf ball still flies, and it flies straight. If you watch those shot trackers every week, the golf ball always falls straight down.
Correct.
The golf ball never continues to curve. It starts to curve,
and then it straightens out and falls. Because that's what it's doing. It's always self-correcting. It's always straightening itself out. So it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that they are so much better because the equipment has made it that way. I got nothing against them as far as athletes and the
what kind of shape they're in and how hard they work out or whatever. But don't tell me they're better players because of that. They got it so easy. They got it so easy. And I told I can't remember his name, but I think he's called the man out front in the Golf Week or whatever.
Yeah.
I told him back in January at Diamond Resorts. He was asking about when, that Tiger was coming back and what I thought. And the funny thing about my career, going back about my career, is people think that I hate the guy because of what I've said in the media, whatever. And I have a great relationship with him. He started his career playing practice rounds with me. I was with him and his dad when he first started. I told him that it didn't matter how he came back. If he came back strong, which he has this time, if he took his time and he came back strong, Tiger is probably still the best golfer in the world. And he looked at me, and I'm like, he goes, what? And I go, he's probably still the best golfer in the world. The problem is, it doesn't matter. Because now it's players. It's not golfers. And he proved it again last week, or he's proven it a couple times. He's probably still the best golfer. He still can control the golf ball. He can still hit the shots he wants to hit. The problem is that does not matter. The only thing that matters is that little club on the green. And he is now not the best putter in the world. So unless he putts his ass off, unless he putts great, he can't win. Because
for
now
4
he
rounds.
has to be,
not for
correct.
1 round. He's got to.
Correct.
It's got to be for 4 days.
Correct, because he can't beat 144 other guys that can play the same way he can. Back in the day, the way he played, he only had to beat those 20 guys or 30 guys. But now he has to beat all 144 because they all can do everything that he can do. Even though he does it better, they still do everything he can do. They still hit the ball 300 yards in the air. They all can hit their irons really long. The golf ball allows them to do everything that they want to do and keep the ball in play hitting it that far. So now it's all a putting contest, and he proved, again, last week, because I think he was like next to last or third to last, which I know that feeling wholeheartedly throughout my career, that's why you don't win.
Well, and I think he hit his irons the stat was ridiculously closer to the pin than anybody else in the field.
Absolutely. But it didn't matter, did it?
No, if you didn't, you putt that bad on the PGA Tour. I don't care how good you hit it. You're not going to win. What do you finish 20th or something? But if you don't putt the ball in the hole consistently with those, it's just not going to happen.
Back in the day, he would have been
there.
top 3, top 2 with a chance to win, and maybe would have won because the other guys would have been penalized. The guys that won, Cantlay and DeChambeau were hitting it all over the place.
Right. No, Bryson's ball striking mid-round, I was watching it, was pretty shaky. But like you said, you hit it in the rough, and you can still kind of – the miss isn't nearly what it used to be. I've got 2 follow-ups, I think, the topic what you're bringing up. The other thing I think it's sad of what happens is a lot of these classic golf courses, like I'm in Sycamore, Illinois.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Like Chicago Golf Club. They're having a women's senior open. It's like a museum. The architecture is so great. But, Christ, you'd have to put 1,000 yards on that thing for it to be even somewhat competitive. So with this modern equipment, you're losing some of these just iconic, and, you have a C.B. McDonald and Seth Rayner, and the only tournament you can have anymore is, no offense to the women, but you can't have a Champions Tour event out there. You guys would shoot a gazillion under. It's just too short.
Yeah, that's why I said it's sad. Whereas, again, you go back to your other place, Wrigley Field's still Wrigley Field.
Right. So,
because even though the players are bigger and stronger, you still got to hit that spot of the bat to get it out.
Right. Has your golf swing changed over the years based on the ball and the equipment? Have you had to make actual golf swing changes to maximize out what that equipment can do?
But that's just it. I can't. Going back to your point, where are the advantages? The advantages are in swing speed, club head speed. where am I gonna gain something at 54 years of age?
I mean, and even more like let's say the Pro V came out and all the solid core balls came out in 2003. I mean, and you were still on the did you, and not full on swing changes, but could you hit different shots? Did you do different shots as that equipment started to evolve to go into your advantage due to the fact that you can now do this where 10 years earlier you couldn't, even in, say, when you were playing your best in your 30s and 40s?
I'm going to say no in that. I guess the only thing that may have changed is the fact that you could keep the ball in the air longer. So certain shots into the greens, with like a 3-iron that was, for somebody with not a ton of clubhead speed, it made the 3-iron out of the fairway a lot easier. So from that standpoint, yeah, it made like long irons easier, the fairway woods easier. But again, the problem being, as the ball evolved, it started to allow people that I could beat consistently and not a problem become better players, because now again, their bad shots weren't so bad. Their ability to not be able to maneuver the golf ball to hit shots didn't matter.
Correct. Right. The difference between a great ball striker and a good ball striker is now it's
minute.
Negligible, if anything. Right.
Right.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Right. You look at a Zach Johnson with that grip and that golf swing. He's got one. I mean, even with the equipment of today, he's got one shot. Hold off draw. He can't spell straight. He can't spell fade. Can you imagine him with a golf ball that moved?
It would be a big old hook. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. He wouldn't be able to play. People talk. When I talk about the golf ball moving and stuff, and then the people, they go, well, Bubba moves the ball, and I go, Bubba can't hit it straight. I said, there's the other big, for me, elephant in the room is how good a player he is, just because the equipment is allowed him to be that way. I mean, he's perfect for this era, 6'5", hits it miles. But you talk about somebody who has no golfing abilities, but because there's no golf swing there. There's none whatsoever. It's just a giant flip. And that's why even with today's modern ball, he can't hit a ball straight because he never swings through the ball. If you look at him, he never makes a path through the ball. It's just a flip. It's a flip hook or it's a flip cut. And since the ball does what it does, it allows him to be a very, very, very good player. Whereas if he had to hit a ball that moved, he'd be dead.
You're saying he'd be off the map. It would be...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. We're talking about a golf ball that self-corrects, and we see it all the time. Like I said, the ball always falls straight. And yet he still hits a 30 and 40-yard cut. But he hits it 320, 330 with a 20 and 30-yard cut. Imagine what that ball would do if he hit it when it moved. It would nosedive.
Right.
And yeah, absolutely. Who knows where he'd have to aim? He already aims over water, over houses, over trees.
I'm just laughing, thinking of putting him put a Titleist Balata 90 in that, and just see that would be the most interesting thing ever, wouldn't it? To see what that would look like.
Yeah, he'd be completely lost, because if you watch his swing, the club never has a, I don't know if you remember, a flat spot, which is how square you keep the club at impact and through impact. The guy doesn't have one. He has no plane of his golf swing goes through the ball. It flips, and that's why he can maneuver the golf ball as much as he does, because people say, well, God, he moves the ball. Yeah, because that club face is shutting down and opening up so drastic at impact. If you ever played with a guy, you'd be amazed where the ball is in his stance. I mean, when he hits that hook, the ball's behind his left foot when he hits his hooks. It's unbelievable. But it's because he can't swing through the ball. He's figured out where his points are to where he can flip at it. And he was top 5 in the world for like 3 solid years, which makes no sense whatsoever. That's how crazy the game has gotten. That guy was top 5 in the world for 3 straight years.
And then you're saying like the opposite end of that. I mean, I always think of like we were talking about through impact, like Lee Trevino had that thing on, talk about straight forever, right? But you had to with that equipment.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, you had to keep the ball in front of you. You really did. I had a good conversation, going back to, big, strong, athletic guys. I had a really good conversation with Phil Blackmar a few years ago. Now, here's a guy 6'7", so obviously way before his time as far as this era of big, strong guys. And we had this conversation about the ball and everything. And he goes, He goes, what people don't realize at my size and the way the ball was, he goes, even sometimes in the fairway, but especially even just in the first cut of rough, he goes, I had to figure out 40 yards of what the ball might do. Because of his club head speed, because of his high arc, because of his size, he goes, I could 40 yards I'd have to figure out at times. He goes, it was hard. He goes, my ball could do anything. And I'm like, yeah, that's whereas now, like you said, you just look at it and go, okay, I just got to hit it hard. He had to sit there and go, okay, what's this ball going to do from here?
Well, and that's, back in those days, that's why Weiskopf at 6'4" was a monster. I mean, most of the guys were 5'10", 5'11". I mean, I'm fully convinced someday you're going to see someone on tour who's really good, who's 6'8", and they're going to hit it 350 yards in the air. It's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
like I said, and I got no problem with a guy if he's that good. But again, don't make it so easy for him to be that good. That's my thing. If he did the, you got your Aaron Judge now, going back to basics. You got your Aaron Judge at 6'7" and whatever. Yeah, he's phenomenal, but he also can't hit 90% of the time. Yeah, when he hits it out of the freaking moon. But just the other day, he struck out 8 times in a doubleheader, first time ever. So even though he's great, he's still susceptible to the game of baseball. Mm-hmm. We got nobody susceptible to the game of golf. We've given them every avenue that they can have to be Dustin Johnson at 6'4" and athletic and be able to hit it with as shut a club face and as shut a move as you could possibly have and be really good because the equipment and the golf ball allows it to happen.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. It really is, right? Of
sure
how does the game go, and it's fascinating. And like I said, I'm old enough where, I miss watching the guys. Like, and I'm not, I love the new players, and you watch them up close, and it's a phenomenal move they make, and it is fun to watch the ball go that far, and I enjoy it. But man, it was fun to watch. Curtis Strange hitting little cut 6 irons from 174. And draws the next hole and working your way around a golf course. I mean, because that's how most of us have to play who aren't at your guys' level, right? I mean, that's what there's more relatable. It's more relatable, and I think it was more artistic back in those days of what they had to do with the ball and creating shots and working your way around it. And it's a little one-dimensional at this point. I would agree with that it's not as much artistry to it of the different swings and the way guys went about it in different ways. They all basically kind of play the same game. For the most part, the young kids especially coming out, it's a straight ball that falls a foot to the right at the 320-yard apex. I mean that's what it is. Full bore, full rip.
How far is it to carry the bunker? How far is it to carry the greenside bunker? There's no, okay, the middle of the green works from right. I'm going to work it off the middle of the green and run it back to, it's all carry.
Yep. It's a different, like I said, I'm young enough and old enough where I've seen both sides of it. And like I said, I miss that era a little bit, but like I said, I don't know how you put it back in the bottle at this point, unless they actually, they're talking about doing some of the ball.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, again, the ball's been dropped already. Now, I don't think it would be that difficult. I really don't. Again, you can have the equipment. I could care less if it's a big driver head and perimeter weighting and all this sort of jazz. But if you just made the ball move, now, I don't think that's very difficult to do.
No, they could do that quite easily from an
They could
engineering
do that
standpoint.
quite easily. I really do. If you just made the golf ball move again, then you might see that, say, Jordan might be, or Rory might be, or Dustin might be, or you might find another special player. But until that happens, it's never going to happen again. You're going to have the revolving door at the top of the world rankings, and you're going to have the revolving door of those 10 guys for the rest of our days, and and eventually Phil Mickelson is, I mean, Tiger obviously too, but Phil Mickelson's the last late guy that's going to have relevance in the game of golf as far as age-wise. I mean, Tiger is too, so I guess I got to say Tiger probably. But all the 40 guys, all the 40-year-olds, where are they? All the guys they're gone. Hell, even all the late 30s guys, that's when you're really up there and dominant. All gone.
Well, yeah, I'm also thinking just from the way the swing is. I mean, I don't see Jason. Extreme example would be I don't see Jason Day real competitive at 43 with the way his body's going.
I said that. I've said that for a long time as well. Like I said, I've been saying that these guys won't last into their 40s.
And
the
that
game
might
of
be
golf
the plan,
is
right? It's 20 years,
it might
18 years, and that's it. And you retire with a couple $100 million in the bank,
well,
and I mean, that's okay.
Well,
I mean,
especially with the money,
right?
Go
at it like hell for 15, and if you're back, I mean, if you're just done at 38, like a pro football player or whatever other major, I mean, that's just going to be it. I totally agree. You're not going to see. It's going to be rare to see what Phil is doing in his 40s consistently. Of course, Rory McIlroy could play great at 44 one week, but I mean, to do it consistently, I don't think you're going to see those guys. Just my opinion, I might be wrong. I don't think you're going to see it.
I've been saying that for a long time. You definitely aren't going to see it. There's just no way. There's no way, because again, you're going to have instead of having an influx of players every year that are, what would you say, veterans, you're going to have, of the 50 guys that come out every year, different or whatever, 40 of them are going to be in their 20s. Pretty soon it's going to be almost 45 are going to be in their 20s. Then you might have a 30-year-old here or there. So you're just going to have this constant influx of 20 to 25-year-olds, constant, coming in and in. And eventually it's just going to be a tour. Like I said, it's going to be a game played by kids from 20 to 35 or 20 to 30.
It's going to be interesting, and I got a few more questions here of just kind of quick fires, but what's the Champions Tour look like in 20 years? I mean, are those guys even going to, are they going to bother to go out there? Are they going to be so removed from the game at that point? Yeah, I mean, right, that's going to be really interesting to see.
Not only that, I don't think they will, because of finances, obviously, one. But I don't think they will, because if the tour stays, if the Champions Tour, if it's still around, if it stays at 50, these guys are going to be 15 years from playing competitive golf. Because they're going to be done at 35.
Right. Does it eventually go down to 45 or something? It'll be interesting to see how that does it adapt, right, to what the modern game is sort of presenting itself. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, look in the future and say, boy, there's going to be a big gap between 38 and 50. What do we do with these guys at that point who can't compete on the regular tour, but the Champions Tour is 10, 12 years away?
Yeah, you got it.
It's going to be
no doubt about it. Oh, sure.
Well, here's my quick fire question. So whatever just sort of comes to your mind, just throw them back at me. So not counting golfers, but because of the game of golf and what you've accomplished, what's maybe 3 or the 4 most interesting people you've gotten to meet in your life because of what you've done in golf?
Darius Rucker and the Hootie and the Blowfish guys. I've played their Pro-Am 24 years in a row. Super nice people. Celebrities, I guess I would just put them all of it, just some of the celebrities that you meet. And the travel, the places I've gotten to see.
If you could take three other guys from the Champions Tour or PGA Tour, you're not that far removed from the PGA Tour, and have a fun money game, have dinner and drinks afterwards, who are you bringing in your group, and what do you like most about those guys?
I'd take three of the nicest guys I've ever met. None of them would be on the regular tour at this point. I would take Nick Price, Ben Crenshaw, and Larry Mize.
It's a good group.
The three nicest men I've ever met in my life playing golf.
Best golf shot you ever hit under pressure? I can come back to it if you need me to.
I'm gonna say the 4-iron on the 18th hole at the President's Cup in my match after I became Aquaman. I birdied the last 3 holes for a halve, and on the last hole I hit 4-iron to about 2 feet for a halve.
Well,
under the gun.
That's under the gun. Yes. I was going to bring this up, but it's not really a rapid fire, but I wanted to get to it. Making a President's Cup team in 07 at 43 years old and to play for Jack Nicklaus and you guys winning the event, how great was that experience, and what was the best part of being on a team with those guys?
It was awesome. Nicklaus is my absolute all-time favorite. So to have the two greatest players that I ever saw at the same place, Nicklaus being the coach, Tiger being on the team, was awesome. Doing it late in my career was really cool. But the funnest part was how much everybody got along. The ping pong matches stand out. I mean, the fun that we would have playing ping pong inside the team room is something I'll never forget.
And having Phil as a partner, how incredible was that?
That was nothing really. I played enough with Phil. That wasn't anything. I would have rather played with Tiger. I'd already been around Phil. I wanted to play with TW. I wanted to be his partner.
Well, Tiger or Phil, it's still pretty good, man. It's still pretty darn good to have one of those guys.
Yeah. But Phil's somebody that can be hard to deal with. So I would have, like I said, he was fine to play with, but I would have rather played with TW.
And my last question, and I think I know where this one's already going, but the most raw, natural talent at the game of golf you ever saw up close?
Definitely Tiger. He was born to play this game. He really was. He was given all the attributes to play this game. When you look back through the game, you look back through the years, everybody had a shortcoming. Everybody had something missing. He didn't have anything missing. He had every aspect of the game, and then he had the most important, which was his mind, which is what made Nicklaus so unbelievable. So he just had it all. He had everything. He was born to play golf.
Yeah, I had the privilege of, when I was in college, I got to caddy at the Western in the Monday program when he was an amateur. So I got to watch him with 20 people around us when he was 18 years old, and he was still at Stanford, I think his freshman year. And you could see it then, man. If you knew golf, you could just watch it, and you just saw, the level of effort he put into that Monday pro-am of trying to do his best, and how good it was even at that age. I consider myself lucky to be able to watch it up close for 18 holes at that age. He was utterly amazing even as an 18-year-old. So it's the most common answer I get when I ask touring pros that question. It's
all right.
Tiger. They said it's just shots he's hit, stuff he's done. He had it at a different level.
Right. I mean, he was born to play golf. Now, I got myself in trouble back in the day because, when he was at his peak, they called him the best athlete in the world, and I thought that was hilarious because he wasn't an athlete. He was born to play golf. the guy, I mean, if you watch him throw a baseball, it's like watching a girl throw a baseball and stuff. I mean, athletically, but, you know, the media, they fall in love with somebody doing something that they, you know, hadn't seen in that year, and they all of a sudden, well, he must be Michael Jordan was the greatest athlete in the world because of what he did on a basketball court. Oh, he's going to turn pro in golf when he retires. You know, I mean, they throw that around like it's so easy, and being an all-around athlete, that kind of was like, no, he was born to play golf.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Like I said, it was incredible to watch, even when he was an amateur, to see it up close of just how good it was. And he still is. I think it's, you know, he's getting there.
I still think, like I said, I still think golfer. I still think he is, because he has it all. He does. He still has it all. He doesn't. The only thing he still does crazy that kills me is he still swings out of his shoes with his driver, and that's why he drives it off the map once in a while. But he likes still hitting it 340 yards. But then when you watch him hit his irons and you watch him he's under control again. So he hits all the play shots, he hits all the controlled shots, and that's why his irons last week, when he's on, he is better than everybody. He hits it closer consistently because he doesn't hit a full shot like everybody does on every shot. He knows that he has to control it. But again, being the best golfer doesn't mean anything anymore. It really doesn't.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch as he gets, you know, through the next three majors and kind of see. I think he's getting closer to really being there consistently. So it's going to be fun to watch. And also, good luck to you this week out in Des Moines. It's a great town.
Thank you.
I hope you play well. And I've really enjoyed the conversation. I knew it would be kind of a fun back and forth. And I think you have some really interesting views. And to be honest, I agree with a lot of your views of where it's sort of going. So hopefully we can see two rules in the game of golf at the professional level, and then let us play with the equipment and that stuff. And we're not going to ruin the game at our talent level. So it's going to be, I hope they actually get there.
Yeah, well, I would love for something like that to happen. I don't see it because, again, the old saying, the inmates run the asylum, and that's the way it is now. The players run the tour runs the USGA and the R&A. So the governing bodies just don't have the power. Every time they make a decision, they're overruled, or they take so much abuse. You know, the Grooves rule that didn't even last 4 months without everybody figuring it all out. You know, the anchoring of the putter, which has been illegal the entire time, but the R&A and the USGA didn't do anything. Then when they finally do try to protect the integrity of the game, because it's gotten to where, you know, 10-year-olds are wanting to putt belly putter and 10-year-olds are wanting to putt with long putters, then everybody gets all up in arms. Oh, you're taking my livelihood. Well, you've been cheating for 30 years. Get away. You know, you've been cheating. It's been in the rule book the entire time. Take your 30 years of cheating and let it go.
But once again, for the average 12 handicap who has a horrible yip, if he enjoys the game more, to shoot his 87.
Exactly.
What's the harm? Let the guy make a few more 10-foot putts and high five his buddies. That's right. The part where I just was dumbfounded because, you know, my buddies at my club, there was like 5 guys who had to stop using it, and they putt like shit. And they putted pretty good with a belly putter from a nerve standpoint. Like, why? How does this help grow the game? It just makes these old guys mad. It didn't make any sense. But anyway, play well this week. Thank you so much for your time. I truly enjoyed the conversation. And like I said, go out there and hopefully the majors coming up. Exmoor Country Club, where the senior players is at. Great golf course. Ball striking will be rewarded there outside Chicago. I played there, and fantastic Donald Ross tracks. So we'll be up there doing a few media things. So maybe we'll swing by and say hello to you.
Okay, sounds great.